The goals of Israel's offensive in Gaza were twofold. One, to bring home hostages alive and eliminate Hamas. Now, the IDF spokesperson says the latter cannot be achieved. Daniel Hagari escalating his feud with the Prime Minister when he said, and I quote, "Whoever thinks we can eliminate Hamas is mistaken." Take a listen.
Hamas is an ideology, is rooted in the hearts of the people of Gaza. To eliminate it, to replace those who run the public services, those who distribute food or steal it, there must be an alternative that can emerge. It's a decision that has to be taken politically, and the army will implement it. Until it is, Hamas will continue to exist. Hamas will not disappear from Gaza. It will not disappear.
We can now go across to France 24's Irris Makler standing by in Jerusalem. Irris, this isn't the first time we've heard a statement like that. We've had it from the French President Emmanuel Macron, but now it's being made from the IDF spokesperson. How is Hagari's statement being viewed where you are?
I think it's being seen as part of the war, if you like, between Israel's politicians and its military. There's been criticism of the politicians for some time because what they have been saying is that they're not looking at the day after in Gaza. There's been that criticism from Washington. There's been that criticism from the opposition leader who was in the government and left because there was no plan for the day after. Now we're hearing that criticism from the military. And I think the military is doing this because there's been a lot of criticism of it from right-wing members of this government, and it's positioning itself so that it isn't the one who's going to be blamed if this war does not end successfully. We've heard criticisms from ministers in the government, open criticism of the leader of the military chief of staff. We've heard criticism from the Prime Minister's son, who's based in Miami but manages to tweet and post on social media internationally. So that's the trend, and I think what you're now seeing is the gloves coming off and the military returning the fight to the politicians and saying we, the military, have accepted some responsibility for the events of October the 7th. The politicians have not yet. The politicians haven't given us a guide for what's going to happen afterwards in Gaza. And as I've heard one military expert say, if you don't know where you're going, you go nowhere.
Interesting that after 8 months, the military is thinking of what comes next, and the politicians are so divided on the issue. Another story that's brewing where you are, Irris, is of course Hezbollah's chief that has responded after Israel said its plans to go after the group have been approved. Take a listen to what Hassan Nasrallah had to say.
Israel knows that no place will be safe from our missiles and our drones, and our strikes are not indiscriminate. Israel knows that we have a list of targets, and we have the ability to reach these targets, and we will shake the foundations of Israel.
Irris, Hassan Nasrallah really upping the ante with that statement. That, of course, statement comes in the aftermath of Israel saying its plans have been approved and validated to go after the group in Lebanon. I want to ask you, Irris, we've had a conflict in Gaza that has gone on for over 8 months now. It's still not over yet. Hostages remain inside Gaza. Let's not forget. Does anyone have an appetite where you are to go after Hezbollah in Lebanon now?
That's a very interesting question because I want to remind everyone that what we have seen over the past 8 months while we've been focusing on the war in Gaza is a conflict in the north of Israel, in the south of Lebanon, that has seen tens of thousands of people on both sides not in their homes, displaced in their own countries. You know, I've seen on the Israeli side a few farmers who have stayed to look after their chickens and their apple trees, and they just have to throw themselves onto the ground whenever there's incoming. It's a very difficult situation. And I think that's part of the reason that is motivating the Israelis who do accept that there will have to be a second front in Lebanon. However, you know, it's problematic for both countries. Let's look at Israel. I've heard from a number of military sources that Israel simply doesn't have at the moment enough ammunition for the kind of fight that Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah was talking about there. That's a big, serious fight, you know, taking out Israel's power stations, taking out many of its other important bases. Israel doing the same in Lebanon. Let's not forget, Lebanon is not Hezbollah. Lebanese people don't necessarily want this war either. So what you see is two enemies pulling each other closer and closer to align a point of no return, which they haven't yet reached, Delano, but, there's no guarantees that they won't.